everybody, and welcome to our January 24th regular meeting of Belleville City Council. We gathered today under the terms of and conditions of the province's modified Step 2 restrictions, which are currently scheduled to end at the end of this week, so starting on Monday, January 31st. In the meantime, as I said, we're meeting electronically, and I want to thank our staff for assisting in the setup of this electronic meeting of Belleville City Council. I also want to thank all members of council for their cooperation and flexibility in meeting under these unusual circumstances as permitted by the provincial government. And while we all know the need for cooperation during the best of times, these virtual meetings are difficult and awkward. So I look to you, my colleagues, for extra cooperation as we conduct the business necessary for the operations of the city of Belleville. For those who are watching on the city streaming service or on our YouTube channel or on your TV, I would point out that our full agenda for today's meeting and all of the reports are on the city website at www.belleville.ca. And you can go to the agendas, meeting, and live meeting video icon on the left of the screen. If you click on that, it'll bring you to a calendar. You can click on January 24th for today's meeting, and that will bring you to the agenda for today. And inside the agenda, as you go through it, you will see a hyperlink in blue, which will allow you to look at the individual reports so you can follow along if you wish to. I will let everybody know that there was an in-camera meeting of Belleville City Council at 3:30 this afternoon. City Council entered into a camera session to consider the following items pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act. There were only two items. Bullet number one was an in-camera report, number Economic Development 2022-04, regarding the potential acquisition or disposition of land. And we were permitted to do that pursuant to Section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act. And bullet number two was the review of the regular in-camera meeting minutes of January 10th, 2022. I will now call the meeting to order and state that all members of council are present. I am here at City Hall and all other members are present electronically. I will ask the Deputy City Clerk, Ms. Christine Stewart, to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others, so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the agenda, item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Anybody have anything they wish to disclose? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you. I'll just disclose the 8A7. I do have restaurants, so I think it's best I just declare a conflict on this.
Okay. Anyone else have anything that they wish to declare? I'm going to reserve. I'm going to take a look at the report again. Just Councillor McCaw has raised an issue under 8A7. I'm going to look at the report while we're going through the meeting, and I may declare a conflict as well. I will just see. But seeing no one else with a conflict, we'll move on to item number. There are no public meetings today, so we'll move on to item number 5, which is reading and confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of January 10th, 2022. And the regular in-camera meeting minutes of January 10th, 2022. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Alsop and Councillor Kelly, any questions or discussion? All in favor? It's carried, thank you. There are no deputations today. Under correspondence, we have one item, which is the Alexicon Energy Community Report for the 3rd quarter of 2021. And the resolution is that the Alexicon Energy Community Report Q3 2021 be received. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Feeney and Councillor Alsop, all in favor? It's carried, thank you. We'll now move to item 8, Committee of the Whole, and I need a motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Sandison. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll move on to reports now. 8A, and the agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council, starting with 8A1, the new fairgrounds development. a peer review for the Belleville Agricultural Society Market and Financial Feasibility Study. It is the Director of Corporate Services Clerk's Report number DCS 2022-02. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services Clerk's Report number DCS 2022-02, new fairgrounds development peer review, Belleville Agricultural Society Market and Financial Feasibility Study, Council support a peer review of the CBRE study. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Alsap and Councillor Carr. Colleagues, this is done. You know that we are waiting word from upper levels of government regarding funding, and staff have brought this before us to get a head start on this in advance. Does anybody have any questions or any comments on it? Councillor Malette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I guess I'll direct my question to Mr. Bove, seeing as the author of the report, Mr. McDonald, isn't here. The concerns, I guess, in the recommendation to have a peer review of CBRE's study and report, just can we get a Cole's notes on the? I noticed that in reading the recommendation, that various departments had not so much concerns, but points that they felt that required this review, and at a cost of some $20,000 to hire someone to peer review the report. I had a couple of questions on it myself, but Mr. Bove, if you could just outline some of those points.
Mr. Bove.
Certainly through his worship to Councillor Malette. There were a few issues that staff noted, and there are as much questions as anything. The report was really prepared for the Ag Society as a bit of a background or a guide to them developing a full-on business plan, and as such, it makes some assumptions going forward, and council staff had some issues with some of those assumptions. Some of them were relatively straightforward, such as it assumed that they would be able to get a second entrance off Highway 37 to the fairgrounds, and staff are aware that MTO will not allow that to happen. So we want to know what that situation will do as far as their business plan going forward. So it was a number of small things like that, and we felt it was best that we go through and do a formal review of it and provide that to the Ag Society and CBRE so that they can address some of those before they get too far down the path of completing their business plan.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and again, I had just small points. One was, for instance, they're assuming that we could re-attract the Association of Automotive Journalists of Canada. Well, that ship has sailed. They've moved on to Niagara on the Lake, and I don't think we're ever getting them back. But yeah, just small points like that. So I'm in favor of having it. I just wasn't sure what the impetus was for the peer review. But again, $20,000. While it's not small potatoes by any means. If we can finer tune the proposal, I'm for it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Malette, we would likely demand that peer review at the time that we were actually considering, moving the project forward. We'd have to, as due diligence. It wouldn't be responsible for us to do so. So we know that we're going to need that information, and this will also get clarification on some of those questions. And I think it's the right thing to do at this time. Anyone else on this? Okay, so the motion's on the floor. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8A2, purchase order for Phase 2 environmental site assessment, the old fairground site at 240 Bridge Street. It is the Development Engineers Report number APS 2022-03. And the resolution is that in accordance with Section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from KBM Inc. being accepted to complete Phase 2 environmental site assessment in the amount of a total of $69,478.05, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Again, trying to get ourselves ahead a little bit. We know that any future redevelopment of that site is going to require some environmental reports. Anyone have any questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. 8A3, Prevo blanket purchase order. It is the General Manager of Transportation and Operation Services report number GMTOS 2022-03. And the resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, Council authorized the issuance of a blanket purchase order to Prevo in the amount of $300,000 for transit fleet repairs in 2022. May I get a mover and a seconder on this, please? Councillor Sandison and Councillor Feeney. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8A4, contract number TOS 2022-01, Point Ann Road reconstruction. It is the General Manager of Transportation and Operation Services report number GMTOS 2022-04. And the resolution is that the tender submission from Fidelity Engineering and Construction, Inc. be accepted for contract number TOS 2022-01, Point Ann Road reconstruction in the amount of total of $547,552.91, this being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that capital budget item number 1.012, Point Ann Road reconstruction, be reduced by $400,000 for a total budget amount of $600,000, and that item number 1.014, road resurfacing, be increased by $400,000 for a total budget amount of $1,900,000. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Carr and Councillor Sandison. Any questions or discussion on this? Councillor Carr.
Yes, just a quick comment. It's great to see such favorable pricing on this one. Being a concrete surface, you never know what the costs are going to be in terms of the removal. And I know other municipalities where that's occurred and it has come at quite an expense. So it's great to see Fidelity Engineering providing great costing. And then with that, being able to allocate the extra $400,000 into road resurfacing, it's money not going to waste, but continues to chip away at some of our road maintenance. So that's great to see. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. The resurfacing of Casey Road, is that road eligible for resurfacing, or does it really need a total reconstruction?
That's a good question. Let's check in with General Manager Reid. Good afternoon, Mr. Reid.
Good afternoon, all of council. Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, it was identified through the roads need study as resurfacing. Through that process, in our capital budget process, we had brought forward 3 roads. We were going to do the little section on Farnham Road, Wright Avenue, and then we were going to do the remainder on Casey from where it was left off at Forsyth Road. That'll include resurfacing, pulverizing the existing surface, adding a little bit of vague gravel as required, and then resurfacing with an asphalt surface. As far as we can go with the funds we have.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else on this item? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8A5, purchase of specialized transit buses. It is the General Manager, Transportation and Operation Services report number GMTOS 2022-05. And the resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from Creative Carriage Limited be accepted for the purchase of 3 specialized transit buses in the amount of a total of $632,095.40, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that the 2022 capital budget item 1.040, new specialized transit buses, be reduced by $120,000 for a budget amount of $230,000, and that item 1.041, new specialized transit buses, be reduced by $120,000 for a total budget amount of $230,000, and that the 2022 capital budget be amended to add a new issue for replacement of unit number 1673 for a total amount of $230,000. Moved by Councillor Sandison, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Some very good news on this. Anyone want to discuss it or have any questions? Councillor Sandison, I figured you'd have a thing to say about this.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, we're actually, kudos to Joe and his team. And the fact that, prior councils had the foresight to enter into agreements with Metrolinx. And, we've been the benefactor of that on a number of occasions. The only comment I was going to make is I was asked a question today about bus 1673, which had 550 or has 550,000 kilometers on it. That's actually a 2016 unit. And so we took possession, or we took it back into our fold, if you will, when we insourced mobility transit from Parkhurst. So it really has performed above and beyond, but it's also at the point where it's presenting all sorts of mechanical issues, and not to be surprised with that kind of mileage. So I just wanted to, tip of the hat to Joe and his team, and certainly a great move.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great report. More a question. I got a couple of questions. How many buses on the mobility buses are on the road at any given time, Mr. Reid?
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, typically we try to run 3 buses. And again, it does depend on ridership and rides that are being booked on a daily basis, but we try to keep the 3 going as required. And that also is part of the reason why we requested 2 in the capital budget, that we don't have any, backup plan when we do have breakdowns, which then affects service.
And with the mobility buses and Councillor Sandison answered this on Facebook to a certain degree, and can you sort of explain to the public, and maybe we don't get it enough, there was a question on Facebook today about somebody that used a walker. What's the rules around using the mobility bus? And a second part of that, I would like to invite you to our next accessibility meeting and sort of give us an update on the accessible bus system in Belleville. So the accessibility bus or accessibility committee knows a little more on what's going on with that, but some brief outline of what it takes to be able to use the mobility bus.
Okay, thank you to Councillor Thompson, all of council and the public. To use the mobility bus or the specialized transit service here in Belleville, you must be a registered mobility bus user before booking the ride. There are several requirements to qualify, including, you must be eligible to use the bus if you are a person with a disability who experiences challenges in using our fixed route transit system. Our staff, when determining eligibility, we consider barriers that affect the individual's ability to use the fixed route system. There is a form that is on the City of Belleville website under the tab Transit that we ask users fill out and have a medical professional sign off as well. Once the transit team have reviewed the application, a new user guide will be sent to the individual to help them understand the process.
So just a little further, and I don't want to drag it out. Does it detail that has to have a doctor's certificate? And if so, is there ways of working around it? Because a number of people don't have doctors.
We do recognize other, like a medical professional. I know there's lots of different situations, and as you said, there are a lot of people that don't have doctors in our community, but we do recognize other professionals out there.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Sandison, thank you for your explanation on Facebook to that degree. I just wanted to bring it up today. No insult to you with your Facebook. I think the public needs to hear it more often. Thank you.
All right, anyone else on this item? So the good news is we're going to have another bus. So that's excellent work. So again, General Manager Reid, to you and Mr. Buck and everybody in that department, thank you very much. And we hope that bus will be busy, helping people with mobility issues get around town. I will call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Item 8A6, purchase of a 2022 Mack Tandem Axle Plow Truck. Manager of Capital and Fleet Asset Report number CFAM 2022-01. And the resolution is that the 2022 capital budget be amended to increase issue 1.026, unit 207-08, plow replacement by $5,000 to be funded from the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund, and that the request for proposal submission from 1561660 Ontario Limited, operating as Surgeoner Truck Center, be accepted for the supply and delivery of a 2022 tandem plow truck in the total amount of $404,438.30, this being the lowest qualified proposal received, and that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Alsap, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any questions or discussion on this? It's unfortunate we didn't have it in place a week ago today, but nonetheless, it'll be here soon. Thank you very much for bringing this forward. All in favor? It's carried. Item 8A7 is Quintilicious Belleville. And then in reviewing the description of the item, even though my business does not take part in Quintilicious, we never have, and we aren't planning on doing so, I think out of abundance of caution, I'm going to declare a pecuniary interest as someone who owns a restaurant, as Councillor McCaw did. Councillor McCaw is the mayor of the month, and she has a conflict. So that means it goes to the next person in order, which will be you, Councillor Sandison. I know you weren't expecting this, but can I turn this over to you to handle 8A7, please? And I will declare the conflict and step aside.
Certainly. So, Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report, ECDEV 2022-03, and the resolution reads that pursuant to Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report number ECDEV 2022-03, Council approved the budget request for $15,000 for Quintilicious Belleville 2022 to be funded from the Municipal Accommodation Tax Reserve Fund. If I can get a mover and seconder. Councillor Malette, seconded by Councillor Feeney. Any comments, questions, discussion? Councillor Feeney, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Sandison, Mayor of the Month. I would just like to say that, yeah, I know that our restaurants are having a difficult time, particularly during, our pandemic and everything else, and we may have to modify it or whatever, but it does bring business and attraction and joy to people and draws traffic to our downtown and other areas. I really support this. I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Feeney. Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries.
And we're back. Thank you very much, Councillor Sandison. 8A8, sole source agreement, purchase of Motorola radio system K-Core expansion. And it is the Director of Emergency Services and Fire Chiefs report number FES 2022-01. And the resolution is that in accordance with section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, the quotation from Motorola Solutions, Inc., be accepted for the sole source purchase of an Astro 25K core radio system expansion in the amount of a total of $894,243.58, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor McCaw and Councillor Carr. I see Chief Belair is with us. Chief, Happy New Year, nice to see you. Do you have anything you want to say about this contract just on the outset before I open it up for questions?
Just that this is aligning with the infrastructure we have already put in place with Belleville Police Services. So it is a cost savings for us moving forward if we choose to use the Motorola. And just note that the capital budget did agree to 1.4 million in allocation. So this money is for the initial radio system. It does not include the future portables that will also need to be purchased.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Malette, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Chief. Chief, I know you mentioned it in your report. Motorola, as anyone who's familiar with emergency services, police, fire, ambulance, they are in fact the leader worldwide in this technology. There are no other compatible systems, I guess, or we're always for the foreseeable future going to use Motorola. Is that my understanding?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, almost all emergency services, as you see, are the leader. And even prior to my arrival here, we did move forward with the relationship with Belleville Police when they were building their new police station for the infrastructure so that we could support each other.
Okay, I saw the thumbs up, so that answered that question. Anyone else on any questions for this? Great. Well, thank you very much, Chief Belair. It's great to have you with us, and thank you for bringing this forward. We look forward to more great news from the department. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll now move to 8B, consent items, where council may adopt consent items by one motion. But prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. And so I will do my best to go around the table. I'll ask if anyone has anything they'd like to pull. Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Councillor Sandison.
8B3.
B3. Councillor Alsop.
No, thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
8B3, please.
Okay. Councillor Feeney.
It's been pulled.
Okay. Councillor Malette.
8B1, please.
Okay. And then Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
Okay. I'm trying to do that off my memory of the seating arrangement. So thank you. So that means that the following agenda items be reproved with the exceptions of items 8B1 and 8B3. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Alsop and Councillor Malette. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll start with 8B1. It is the repeal bylaw 2021-94 and enter into a new subdivision agreement with Bell Harbor, formerly Dockside Quinte, at 25 Dundas Street West. The owner of this application is Harbor 25 LP, and it refers to files number ER 107 12 CD-14 001. It is the Development Engineers Report number APS 2022-01, and the resolution is that a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement between Harbor 25 LP, the owner, East Marina Investments Limited, Gordon and Patricia Gray, Animal Welfare Organization, and James Keith Wilson, the mortgagees, and the corporation of the City of Belleville be prepared for council's consideration, but that the respective agreement and related documentation not be signed until such time as the manager of approvals advises that the owners have satisfied all city requirements, and that the council of the corporation of the City of Belleville repeals bylaw 2021-94 for Bell Harbor, formerly Dockside Quinte, file numbers ER 107 12 CD 14,001 for the lands identified as 25 Dundas Street West, City of Belleville. Moved by Councillor Malette, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Councillor Malette, you had raised this issue. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I know this report was brought by Mr. Glidden, so I don't know if Mr. Ashton can answer my question on this one. And it's I see that this is more or less a housekeeping matter, changing the names. I have just a couple of questions. This is not, in fact, a change of ownership. It's a change of registered name for the property. Is that correct? The scope and the layout of the property haven't changed at all?
That's my understanding, but let's get Director Ashton to just confirm that, please.
So from a legal perspective, we were advised by Templeman, our town solicitors, to approach it this way. So it is the same people we were sitting with discussing this a number of months ago are still the same people. So whether that makes it a new ownership group, I'm not sure. But it's the same people involved, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know who can answer this, but the Gordon and Patricia Gray Animal Welfare Foundation apparently is the principal owner or one of the principals in this. And just looking at their website and looking into the owners, I don't see anywhere in here apartment development, but perhaps this is some way a fundraiser for their global animal welfare charity. I don't know, but it just struck me as odd. But
yes, so Councillor Malette, it's the same people, the same project. I think what they're doing is reorganizing themselves from a financing point of view.
Okay.
So they'll have, there's different mortgagees on this. They're lining up their funding so that they can start that project. In my last meeting with them, they do expect to break ground in the summer of 2022. And so this is just, doing their corporate reorganization to ensure that everything is able to go ahead. I don't know, they did not bring us to our attention the fact that there were foundations involved or whatnot. Again, I think it's just a matter of being able to properly register the interests on those who are lending the funds for this project to go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, and hey, if building apartments in Belleville helps the elephants in Africa, I'm all for it. So thanks.
Sure. Yeah, it would probably be the first time. Anyone else on this item? Seeing no one else, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll move to 8B3, Ward 2 Transit Service Survey Questions. The General Manager of Transportation and Operation Services Report Number GMTOS 2022-06. And the resolution is that the General Manager of Transportation and Operations Services Report Number GMTOS 22-06 regarding Ward 2 Transit Service Survey Questions be received as a
Is that my feed?
We're just experiencing a power outage here at City Hall. And it appears the mayor's laptop has frozen temporarily. We'll have a look at that.
Thank you.
Just one moment as everyone reconnects. The power has resumed and various connections to this meeting were interrupted.
I just had a little brown out here on the east end of Belleville, so fingers crossed.
We just had a little twitch here in the west end too, so let's hope it doesn't go out.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. We had a power outage here at City Hall. So let me just verify that we have everybody back with us. So I see Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kelly, Councillor McCaw, Councillor Carr, Councillor Malette, Councillor Sandison, Councillor Alsop. If you can all just give me a wave to make sure that you're not frozen, please. Thank you. And then, of course, we have Mr. Bove and Deputy Clerk Stewart. So sorry about that interruption. I had just finished reading the resolution for the 8B3, which is the Ward 2 Transit Service Survey questions. That's moved by Councillor Sandison. I'm looking for a seconder on it. Councillor Carr. Councillor Sandison, you had first raised this issue. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the first, let me say that I supported the motion that came forward in December. And the motion talks specifically about transit route in Ward 2. It asks city staff to prepare a survey, and it's to be regarding area property owners' willingness to fund that transit route through property taxes. So as I read that motion, it's specific, it's not ambiguous, it's not open-ended, and the survey questions, or question, I guess, should align with the motion. So it's a motion about funding, not discontinuing Transit Route 9 service. So maybe as a bit of background for council, as part of the expansion consideration by the Transit Operations Advisory Committee, a survey was prepared and approved by the committee in 2019 and subsequently approved by council. So the entire Ward 2 community was polled to assess interest, potential ridership, and of course a willingness to pay. So from the results, the recommendation to implement Transit Route 9 was developed and approved by the committee and then by council, and we launched that service in September of 2021. So Transit Route 9 was tailored to the urbanized areas within Ward 2. So that is the areas that receive all other municipal services. Now, the actual route was to be fixed for a 1-year time frame, during which time transit operations staff would gather the data on usage throughout the entire route and then determine the most optimum service route and bus stop locations. And of course, that would feed into the overall transit master plan that's being brought forward. So we adopted this approach such that no permanent bus shelters or bus stops have been erected, as the committee recognized that there would be changes made to the route traveled by the users of Transit Route 9. So unlike previous pilots, if you will. The route traveled is fixed for a 1-year period, so we can monitor ridership throughout the entire route. So overall ridership for the city is down. It's down over the past 2 years because of COVID, of course. And currently, I would say we're operating, ballpark at about 50% of traditional ridership levels. In December, just passed, Transit Route 9, in its 4th month of operation under COVID, had ridership of 2,783. And in the first 4 months of operation, ridership is 7,657. So I don't know how many of the riders of Transit Route 9 are property owners, but my guess is many, like myself as a property owner, I would be asked to pay for a service that I wouldn't use. But public transit is part of the fabric of a healthy, inclusive, and economically vibrant community. As I said, I supported the motion in December to survey area property owners' willingness to fund Transit Route 9 partially through property taxes. Question 2 in the report needs to be changed to ask that question because it currently does not align with what council supported, and it should accurately reflect the amount that property owners could be paying in 2022. So Transit 9 is fully funded through September 2022. So for the 2022 operating budget, property owners should be asked if they are willing, asked if they're willing to pay $52.50 based on the example used in question 2, not $210. Transit Route 9 has only been in service for 4 months, so it's premature for this council to be considering discontinuing the service. With the introduction of Transit Route 9 came mobility transit service. So not only for Ward 2 residents, but for Ward 1 residents that needed to travel into Ward 2 for medical appointments and other necessities. Now, by September 2022, Route 9 will have been in service for a full year. Staff will have gathered the statistics to assess the most optimal service route and specific bus stop locations. It would be appropriate at that time to consider whether to continue as part of the 2023 capital and operating budget cycles, whether this service continues. Questions like, will we want to invest in AODA compliant bus shelters? Where would these shelters and bus stops be located? And what is the optimum route for Transit Route 9? All of those questions should be addressed at that time. In summary, question 2 should be changed to the following. If you answered yes to question 1, would you be willing to fund Transit Route 9 with an approximate cost of $52.50 for 2022 based on the impact assessed property valued at $300,000? So I'd like to make a friendly amendment to question 2 in keeping with the wording and intent of the original motion, and that the following, it be changed to the following. If you answered yes to question 1, would you be willing to fund Transit Route 9 with an approximate cost of $52.50 for 2022 based on the impact assessed property valued at 300,000. So if I can get a second to that amendment.
Councillor Sandison, I would not agree that that's a friendly amendment, and I understand your point about the fact that September is not the latter half of the year. But if I look at the resolution that we passed on December the 13th, it talked about the latter half of 2022 and beyond. And I think that the inclusion of the annualized rate, which would be about $210 per year, and that figure came from finance, which is the amount that Ward 1 residents pay on their property taxes to support transit. That was brought forward. So, certainly the you're the mover and Councillor Carr is the seconder on this, but I think that it's a different motion from what we agreed to on December the 13th. And I say that as someone who did not support the motion on December the 13th. But now, when I look at it, an amendment cannot change the intent of it. And the intent is for this moving forward beyond just the last 4 months of the year 2022. That is what the survey is. And of course, the survey, we also need to remind everybody, is not binding. Council will make a decision through the budget process of how we will continue to operate the city and the transit system. But this was, again, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but this was designed to seek input on making that decision. And so I think the motion, question 2, is consistent with what was passed on December the 13th. And my advice would be, if you would like that to change more along the lines of your motion, then council should defeat this, and then we can reintroduce the different motion at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you're finished now with your comments on it? Okay, any Councillor Carr, I saw you put your hand up. Go ahead on the motion that's on the floor now, please.
Yes, thank you. And the survey came to us last meeting, and I appreciate the fact that Councillor McCaw had made a suggestion, which I see is included in the question in terms of how it's framed. And this would be, in fairness through you to Councillor Sandison, this would have been a great suggestion to have that conversation 2 weeks ago. And the $210 is not simply to fool anybody any different than the $52.50 is to fool anybody. So I think there's facts in both of those, and I think it's reasonable to say that yes, there would be a portion in 2022, but the fact of the matter is council has to make a decision at operating budget for a portion of 2022. But then once that decision is made, it's certainly not lost on me, and I don't think it's lost on others, that commitment then is baked into the budget for following years. No different than when service expansion occurs in other avenues throughout the city. So I want to be very clear here. Is my intent in introducing these motions and to get this survey out is to obtain feedback. And rightfully, and I agree with what the mayor has said, that this is not binding, but I think it's imperative to ask the question. I don't disagree with transit being an essential service, but how it looks and what it looks like and how it's serviced is all things that we can set, and we set levels of service all the time. But that's a debate for another day. And that debate actually would serve more purpose when we're actually trying to allocate funds and what it's looked at. And the mayor last meeting made comment that Transit Advisory Committee may need to look at other options. And, the on-demand option is out there, and it's something that our city has spearheaded in North America through an agreement with Plutonium. So when you look at the options that are available, the service doesn't have to look like the normal service, but could provide the service. But these are all debates for another day. This here is simply getting information out so that the public can provide feedback. Now, when the first survey, survey came out and we 70% were opposed, but with provincial gas tax, there's that option to proceed with the service, which we have done. And I think The rollout has been much better and executed much better than previous attempts. I think the communication has been a lot more effective. And I think all things considered, COVID and all the other impediments that we face as a municipality, that the ridership took off. Now, like everything else, you know, people don't want to be in public spaces. So ridership has tailed off. These are things that we can look at budget time. And transit staff are very clear, because I asked the question at committee, what do you need in terms of ridership to get an idea as to whether or not the service is sustainable from usage? And the transit staff were clear, 6 months of ridership. Now, COVID plays a role, but that can also be adjusted based on the fact that all of our ridership on all of our routes have taken a little bit of a hit, and even more recently with these other provincial restrictions. But again, these are all discussions and debate that we can have at budget. I simply want to have as much information as possible, and obviously hope that council would feel the same, to at least consider what the input is from the residents. And the other survey was quite clear that there was an appetite for an on-demand service. 70% were opposed to fixed routes. So regardless, we need to take it all into consideration when the time comes. Today is not the day to talk about and debate the merits of the system and what it may look like. This is simply to say, as the motion also includes from December 13th, the council approved the survey. So the fact that the survey was developed and included input and review by council, and we can approve this, then it's just more information to consider at budget time. You can choose not to consider it. You can choose to ignore it. But it's simply there. I feel much better when it comes time to make that decision to have that input. And so that's why I will support it. The original motion today is to receive as information, but I'd like to make an amendment to be received as information, and that the survey be approved for public circulation. And that just simply provides staff with council approval of the survey and direction, as was the intent from December 13th, and then leave it up to staff to ensure circulation through social media channels. Thank you. And
so we'll just add on at the end of the sentence, and that the survey be approved for circulation.
Yes.
Right.
And I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Do you want a time on that, Councillor Carr? So you're obviously we want that in advance of our operating budget discussions at the end of March.
Well, so what I would suggest then is, if I could, considering that staff will have to present a report with some analysis and the hard numbers, I would leave it up to staff to release and to circulate in terms of social media, and to have back in time to prepare a report to actually come in on the operating agenda. Okay. I don't want to bind them that much, but I want to make sure that they have work done in time.
Okay.
And I'd like a recorded vote as well, please.
Yeah. So first of all, Councillor Sandison, on the amendment, do you agree to add that line? So at the end of information.
I had my hand up before the amendment.
I know.
So I'd like to be recognized by the chair.
You will be recognized at the end. We'll go through it. You were the first to speak. It's your motion. We'll come back to you at the end. But right now we have an amendment that's being proposed, and I'm trying to find out if it's a friendly amendment. If it is, then the motion will be amended, and that's what we'll consider. If not, then we'll debate the amendment and have to vote on the amendment. So that's what I'm trying to seek clarification. At the end of information in the resolution, it's and the survey be approved for circulation. Are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so the motion is amended. We'll go through the speakers, and then Councillor Sandison will be able to summarize at the end before we speak. I see Councillor McCaw had her hand up. Go ahead, Councillor McCaw, and then Councillor Malette.
Thank you, through you. So just point of clarification, we have a couple different figures here. We have the figure that Councillor Sandison just gave us, and then we have the other figure that's actually on the motion. So what is it that we're going to circulate? I want to make sure that the number that we're circulating is is the correct number. We have two different numbers that we're talking about here. And
number
I want
that's
to
gonna
be
be-
transparent and I want to be accurate.
Sure.
And I want, the residents to know exactly what the number is.
The figure that will be used in the survey will be the annualized $210. Councillor McCaw, I think you've frozen up a little bit.
So
what I'll-
just with that in mind, if I might ask, okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes, go ahead.
Better? Is it better?
Yeah. Yes.
So I guess my question is the number that Councillor Sandison brought forward is the amount that is currently for 2023. Is that correct?
No. So we funded a one-year pilot project or a trial project or whatever term you want to use, because I know that the words can sometimes be confusing. We funded it from September 2021 to September 2022. The amount that's unfunded for the year 2022 will be the last quarter, September to December. That would represent about $52 that we still would have to fund for this fiscal year that we will set the budget in at the end of March for. Moving forward, the annualized amount would be the full $210. So for the purpose of this survey, we will be using the annualized amount, what we estimate it to cost for the entire calendar year.
Okay, that's the answer I wanted to know. I just don't want to put a number out there that may not be accurate. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Councillor McCaw, and then we'll go to Councillor Malette, and then Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as I stated quite clearly, I think when this was first broached by my colleague, Councillor Carr at a December meeting, I'm going to support this, and I'm glad we clarified that is the original intent. I think that we wanted to get a better read on the cost going forward on an annual basis on the tax impact, and yeah, we can have the broader discussion, but I'm going to support this at this point in its form, and I appreciate that that this will go out as soon as possible so we can have a full report back to us by the time budget hits at the end of March. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Good conversation today about route number 9. When we look at the $210 on a $300,000 home, am I to believe, and for those who are watching at home, am I to believe that if your home is assessed at $600,000, it would be $420, and if your home is assessed at $900,000, it would be assessed at about $860, just so everybody's on the same page? Okay, and we've been talking about having the survey results completed by operation meetings, and you referred to the end of March, Mayor Panciuk. We're already days away from February. I just hope that we give the people enough time, and I don't know what the return time is going to be on this from city staff, and how many days they expect input. And hopefully that this survey will also have it that you actually send the information once, not multiple times, and it's somehow connected to your home or your IP address. Anyway, that's my comments on that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Feeney.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I went through a power out, and Mark Coyle has been great. I tried to get a little bit of the conversation happening on my phone and whatever, so now I'm back. My few comments are these. I do believe that transit is a service that we should provide to everyone. I know that people that don't use it may not want to pay for it, but it is an essential service, not just from helping people that don't own vehicles or, whatever, to get around, and people with mobility issues, but also the fact that it's ecologically friendly. We need to put all that in the mix. So yeah, we talk about dollars and we talk about cents and all that, whatever. But I think as a community that is as caring as ours, that we should consider transit being our way to get around in the future and right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Feeney. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, question on the survey. Is the survey going to be delivered to each household? And the reason I'm asked, I had a call today from somebody on this question, and they live on Airport Parkway, which is really not where we're talking about, but that person didn't have internet. So my concern is, do we deliver this hand delivered? Does the mail people delivering it? How are we getting this survey out?
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. If you recall from the last meeting, we are not able to include this in the notices of assessment because of the timing. So this will be basically a social media questionnaire. We will have a website that we will communicate on our social media platforms to ask people to be aware. Councillor Kelly's concern regarding the fact that it's going to be tied to a specific address is not possible, for this. It'll be a source of information that council can consider when this is up for discussion and vote in March. And the meeting is scheduled for March the 29th.
Okay.
Okay, so I have everyone, Councillor Alsop, if you don't have anything you do. Okay, so then I'm just going to make a couple really quick comments and I'll turn over to Councillor Sandison to finish up. And and I think, again, I appreciate everyone's cooperation at the last meeting. These virtual meetings are not easy, and it's hard to deal with things when we can't see it. And there were some legitimate concerns about the questions at the last meeting. And I want to thank, Mr. Reed and staff for working with council, trying to bring back something that is as good as it can be in the sense of in this environment. So we appreciate that. I cannot support this resolution, just like I could not support it in December. Not because I don't wish to hear from people, but because I don't think we can only ask people in a particular part of the city and not ask others. I think we should be asking everyone in the city. I know we all get feedback from residents, and I can't tell you how many times I get feedback from residents in Ward 1 who object to our transit service, who they say that they don't use it and they don't want to pay for it. And it's not just transit that I hear from people about that. It's other municipal services. They don't ever use the police. Why are they paying for the police? They don't ever use the fire department. Why are they ever paying for the fire department? They use very little water. Why do they pay so much money for water and sanitary? And this is the challenge of being in a municipal office, is that we are tasked with providing a bundle of services for residents. It's not perfect. Sometimes you do need to have a critical mass to be able to make it cost effective. And again, if we're going to be asking people, no one asked Ward 1 residents when transit was first established whether or not they wanted it. The council of the day felt that it was an important service to provide, and they went forward. And in speaking with former Mayor Ross McDougall, who was the mayor at Amalgamation at that time, and there was very little urban portions of the former Thurlow Township when the communities came on, and there was no transit service. And the mistake was they didn't have it in their strategic plan or have it baked in that as residential areas moved on, we just established transit service because we wouldn't be having this conversation today then. But because it's an addition to areas that have been used to not paying for it, it's coming forward. So again, I will be voting against the motion, not because I don't want to hear from people, but because I think we should be hearing from everybody and making this important decision as we move forward with the future of transit. But I do appreciate everyone's cooperation in getting these questions. I think they're the right ones for us to present in this imperfect scenario. And I'll call on you, Councillor Sandison, now to wrap up, and then we'll call the recorded vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. So a few comments. Certainly agreeing to the amendment indicates my willingness to get this thing out quickly so that we can get the results back in a timely manner. When I spoke earlier, I wasn't debating the merits of the transit system or other options available. I was merely providing context for those members of council that do not sit on the Transit Advisory Committee. And I don't think there's anybody on council that isn't interested in hearing from the public on this matter or any other matter. So to sort of coin a phrase, we're here to serve the public. So I'm very interested in hearing from them. I supported the original motion. I thought we should change the wording on the survey because I think it's more reflective for 2022, but I understand the feedback that I've received, and I certainly will be supporting the survey the way it's written. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the Deputy Clerk to call the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will call the recorded vote, starting with Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Alsop,
Yes.
Councillor Carr,
Yes.
and Councillor Feeney,
Yes.
Councillor Kelly,
Yes.
Councillor Malette,
Yes.
Councillor McCaw,
Yes.
Councillor Sandison,
Yes.
and Mayor Panciuk.
No.
Thank you. I can report that the motion has carried.
Carried. Good, thank you. All right, that takes us with the rest of the 8B. So we'll now move to 8C, Council Information Matters, where Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that the specific items be removed from consideration, and a council shall consider such items individually. So we'll go around the other way of the table, starting with Councillor Kelly. No?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Malette.
Yes, 8C1, please.
8C1, okay. Councillor Alsop doesn't have anything. Councillor Carr.
I have 8C1, but I'll see what Councillor Malette has to say first.
Okay, yeah. Councillor Thompson.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, that was 8C2.
8C2.
Yeah.
So you're 8C2 and Councillor Carr is 8C1.
Yeah.
Good, okay. Okay, Councillor Thompson.
8C2.
Okay, Councillor, Councillor Feeney.
It's already been pulled. It's okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alsop now? No? No. Councillor Sandison
No, thank you.
and Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Okay, so then, well, we're going to pull both items. So let's move to 8C1, the building section month-end report for reporting period of December 2021. Councillor Carr is moving, seconded by Councillor Malette, that it be received. Councillor Carr, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just with this being the December 2021 report, we're just seeing some year ends on construction values, and 2020, to 12.3 million in construction values, but 2021 was actually 29.4 million. So it's great to see that construction is up, and with that is also permit fees, but to see that type of construction occurring and some commercial growth in the $7 million versus 296, and same for residential. 2020 had 6.3 million in construction value, 2021 18.3. So it's great to see some recovery even as we continue through the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone else on the building section month-end report? Great, and we don't get a chance often because we typically just receive them, but we want to thank the chief building official who is responsible for compiling all these stats and getting to this, to him and his department. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll now move to 8C2, which is a request of support of the following letter and resolution. It is the November 22nd, 2021 resolution from the City of Kitchener, which urges the provincial government to direct the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office, Technical Services, to undertake an immediate review of the Ontario Fire Code portion known as retrofit section 9.5 to require self-closing devices on all suite closures within low-rise residential buildings and doors entering exit stairwells to be equipped with self-closing devices and positive latching. It's moved by Councillor Malette, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Go ahead, Councillor Malette.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I'm glad to see Chief Belair is present on the feed because I'm sure she may have some comments on this. The motion by, or the resolution, sorry, by the City of Kitchener notes that there hasn't been substantive changes to the retrofit provisions of the Ontario Fire Code in 29 years in regards to such life-saving devices. And I think if anybody who was paying attention to the news saw the deadly fire on January 9th in the Bronx, in which 19, now that was a high-rise granted, but 19 people perished in that blaze. And it was largely attributed to a door left ajar that spread throughout the building. Had these devices been mandated and in place in that, I'm not saying that the fire might not have been as serious, but I think every fire official that's commented on that in the days and the weeks since has noted that that in fact is a life-saving measure. And I just wondered if I could get Chief Belair's comments on that, but I'm certainly going to support that, support of this motion for the City of Kitchener and petitioning the province to make these changes because I believe they're important. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chief Belair, as someone who used to work in the Ontario Fire Marshal's office, I know that you would have some background with this. Do you have any comments you'd like to add to Councillor Malette's on this issue?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Malette. So technical services is the one that does the reviews of the fire code, which, as you saw, was sprinklers of vulnerable occupancy. So this is another initiative that is being brought forward. So it is already with the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, who is usually the central voice that speaks to the fire marshal's office. So they've already prepared documentation and forwarded it in. So I would highly encourage the City of Belleville to back this, because anytime we can increase safety, and retrofit applies based on the age of a building. So obviously it affects much older buildings, and that's why we have retrofit in existence, because the building code does not apply. So I would highly recommend, from my experience, that the City of Belleville supports Kitchener, and that we do send some form of a letter saying that we would support this change in the Ontario Fire Code retrofit section.
Okay, great. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I had sent an email to Chief Belair on this subject of whether we thought it was a good idea that we support this, and she gave me a note back that it's already, as she stated, on the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, and she asked us to make sure that we do support it. And I commend Councillor Malette for bringing it up. And with the advice from Chief Belair, I would certainly be happy to second it and send it off, because if we can save one life, we've done our job. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Rise and report. Can I get a motion to rise and report, please? Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move on to item number 9, bylaws, and we only have 3 today. So the first reading of bylaws number 2022-06, 2022-07, and 2022-08. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Alsop and Councillor Carr, all in favor, it's carried. Second reading of bylaws 2022-06, 07, and 08. Any mover and a seconder? Councillor Alsop and Councillor Thompson. Any discussion on any of those bylaws? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. And third and final reading of bylaws number 2022-06, 07, and 08. Moved by Councillor Thompson and Councillor Alsop. All in favor? It's carried. All right. We'll now move to new business. And I would like to take a moment to thank all the residents of Belleville for adhering to the strict regulations that have been put in place by the province of Ontario. I'm so proud of our city and our region for being proactive and taking all of the proper protocols seriously. After a one-day delay due to a major snowfall event, most schools in Belleville resumed in-class learning this past Tuesday, January the 18th. And this is another big step for our area. I am sure that many parents and children are very happy to be back at school. And just a reminder that children will be back on the streets walking to school. So motorists, please drive with care. We ask, as we say, to give them a break. With approximately 34 centimeters of snow received on Monday, January 17th, we'd like to say a big thank you to our amazing city staff who worked around the clock on winter storm cleanup operations. You know, we have over 60 staff who work to clean the 950 kilometers of roads, the 230 kilometers of sidewalks and pathways, along with city parking lots and other areas to clean, making last week a major activity and a logistical challenge. We did declare a significant weather event immediately prior to that storm, and I'm pleased to report that advisory was lifted today. Again, a thank you to all the residents who were patient, supportive, and assisted with their neighbors. This is what Belleville is about. Ontario will be relaxing some of the restrictions imposed by the provincial government. Indoor dining, theaters, gyms, recreational facilities, and other services will resume with capacity limitations. These relaxations will affect municipal services as well. So a few reminders, to keep in mind over the coming days. First of all, City Hall remains open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. by appointment only. If anyone requires in-person services, please don't forget to book your appointment. You can call City Hall and you can go on the city website. The Quinte Sports and Wellness Center will continue to be closed to the public as per provincial regulations for the rest of this week. However, it will reopen with ice and pool rentals resuming on January 31st. Updates and modifications will continue to be posted on their website at qswc.com. And staff have reached out already to user groups to assist with the reactivation and booking of the facilities. The Hastings and Prince Edward Public Health Vaccination Clinic that operates at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center will be moving within the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center this week. Starting tomorrow, Tuesday, January the 25th, the clinic will be operating in the gymnasium on a part-time basis. This will allow us to reopen the Family Dental Center arena for ICE bookings. Again, and that will also allow the gym to be available for regular programming on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, starting on January 31st, when those modified restrictions are in place. Now, I know that's going to make a lot of people happy, those who have been giving us a lot of feedback with the lack of indoor basketball space, lack of pickleball space, the lack of ice time for their children and for the adult leagues. And while we can't make everybody happy, I think everyone will be a little bit happier. Just very quickly, the calendar that we have available now is that on January 27th, so starting later this week, registration for recreational swims, the Family Dental Center indoor track will start. And we posted online for people to view that since January the 17th. As I said earlier, January 31st, all ice and pool rentals will resume. On January 31st, the winter session registration for city taxpayers will commence. On February 1st, next Tuesday, recreational swims and the Family Dental Center indoor track bookings begin. February 3rd, the winter session registration for programming for non-city taxpayers will start. February 7th, for everybody who loves Aquafit, those programs will start on February the 7th. And then a week later, on February 14th, land fitness, recreation programs, and swimming lessons and leadership courses will begin. And again, to remind everybody that the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center remains open for physiotherapy and massage services, and the Hastings Prince Edward Public Health COVID-19 vaccination clinic will continue. Again, customer staff may continue to be contacted by telephone and email, and if required, people can make an appointment. We are still waiting for more details regarding the Belleville Senators for their games and their practices resuming, but we anticipate that will be shortly. And I want to remind everybody again that all municipal facilities require proof of vaccination in order to enter. The Emergency Warming Center has been activated several times this winter, including over the weekend. A reminder that it's operating at Bridge Street United Church and is open from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And I understand that it has now been activated for the remainder of this week through Sunday. I'd also like to remind residents that all winter trails and parks are open, and we really encourage you to take advantage of getting outside for some physical and mental exercise, including walks, hiking, and other outdoor activities. Skating at Victoria Harbor and West Zwicks is open and is being enjoyed by many people. There are also a couple of community rinks, including at the Fairgrounds property on Sydney and Bridge. We appreciate the work that so many do to keep these facilities operating as weather conditions allow. Thank you so much to everybody who's involved. More information regarding our COVID-19 protocols and services is available on the City of Belleville website, and we use our local and social media outlets to also notify the public. After almost 2 long years of COVID-19, we are all looking forward to the normalization of our lives. And as a council, we remain collectively and singularly focused on the safety and health of our residents in all of our decisions, and we encourage all eligible individuals to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Colleagues, anybody else have any items of new business today? So we'll start with Councillor Malette.
Thank you, Your Worship. And last week we held our first meeting of the Green Task Force for 2022. And as chair, I was pleased to give or receive a recap from staff on some of the accomplishments. I think, as was mentioned by one of our senior staff people, 2021 for the Green Task Force was probably one of the most productive in the history of the committee, and we as a city should be proud of the accomplishments that we made in 2021. And if I could, I'd just like to give a quick recap. In 2021, we had the following programs and initiatives enacted by way of the Green Task Force. We had our giveaway days. As we know, the first year of that was quite successful, and thanks again to Councillor Sandison for the heads up on that one. Our Let It Grow campaign, which received a lot of attention for some areas of our parks to naturalize. No Mow May campaign to help again with our pollinators. Our annual tree planting campaign in 2021. I don't think an awful lot of people realize that throughout the city and as part of city initiatives and in partnerships with some with service clubs and other groups, we planted 8,500 trees in the city last year. We also had our annual tree seedling giveaway, giving away 1,500 seedlings to residents of seedlings and saplings to residents. Of course, we had our council adopted the Climate Change Declaration, a very important document and a statement for us. Much more on that going forward in 2022. The Quinte Trash Bash, again, COVID challenged us, but we managed to clean up our backyards, as it were. Litter traps, that's something you're going to be hearing more about, and it's a trial program that we have. Basically, it traps litter in storm drains, and it keeps an awful lot of plastics and items that make their way into our waterways, and that's an important pilot project. We'll have more results on that. The Doors Open collaboration, where we basically opened the doors virtually to, and if anybody saw the water treatment plant that we have, that we did on that, it was amazing. It's getting great feedback. And finally, we had the city webpage and litter campaign. It's signage and promotion on the city website to dissuade people from illegal dumping. But those are just some of the items that the Green Task Force accomplished in 2021, and staff have been amazing. We've got some good initiatives, so ask that everybody stay tuned for 2022. Some good things coming from your Green Task Force. Thank you.
No, great work, Councillor Malette, for that committee you chair, and I would agree with you. It's been the most active that I think we've ever seen in history. Now, can you just remind? I want to make sure I got the number right. The number of saplings that were handed out this year. Did you say 1,500?
Yeah, 1,500 saplings and seedlings, and
8,500 trees that were
were
planted. You know, that's one of the comments I think we get a lot from people, that the city doesn't care about green space, doesn't care about the lungs of the earth in terms of trees. And, the point is, and when we tell them that we literally plant thousands of trees every year, people say, well, I don't believe you. Where do you do that? Well, 10,000 trees were planted in 2021 alone, under the great work that your committee's done, and they're all over the city. And that's important for us to remember, because I think, a lot of times municipalities are tasked with managing growth, and we don't do that ignoring the environment. We actually have very robust programs in place. So thank you for that work, and also the other work that your committee is doing. New business. Anyone else for new business? Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, Mayor Panciuk. I would like
Can I
to
suggest
ask for
that
a
you turn
staff
off your
report.
video again, Councillor McCaw, just because you're breaking up, and let's see how
Is
that
that
sounds.
better? Is
Much
that
better,
better?
thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to ask for a staff report regarding all available options, if there are any, that may be available by way of assistance to the property or business owners on Church Street neighboring the Grace Inn shelter, by way of either tax reduction, tax rebate, or tax abolition, given the repeated issues that they've been facing on a daily basis. I know we've all received the emails from the one business there. We're hearing about it in the media as well as in other places. We know that it's at least one of these businesses are being negatively impacted to the point that it's affecting their day-to-day business operations. That this is in addition to the impact it's also having on their property value. I realize an application can be made to impact, however, this is not a guarantee for them. So I'm just asking staff if they can research or uncover any possible options that we as a city can do to help these property owners that neighbor that particular property. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we can have the deputy clerk and the clerk, when he returns, can look into that, and we'll see what the schedule is to get back to you. Anyone else for new business today? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to motions. So we have a notice of motion that was provided at the last meeting from Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, if you want to go ahead and read out your notice of motion, and then we'll get a seconder and we can start the discussion on it.
Thank you very much. The motion reads that the City Council of Belleville request, through our representative members, councillors on the Community and Human Services Committee to Hastings County, a detailed report to this council and other member municipalities on ways and means of establishing a properly staffed, funded, centrally located facility with which to provide these warming and cooling room services, and that the county, in consultations with members of the Joint Service Committee, work to collaboratively solution that will see the establishment of such a facility on the soonest possible time. Further, that report explore operations requirements, including financial analysis and potential funding sources, internal and external, for change in a minimum temperature threshold, for example, -5 degrees. And finally, that report also outlined emergency housing programs, including usage and results. And
my understanding is that Councillor Kelly was seconding that. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Kelly? Okay, yeah. So go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and of course, it was brought to my attention that the county had just discussed that the day that I was bringing it up 2 weeks ago. But the reason I'm bringing it up, and with support of Councillor Kelly, is that I believe, and we believe as a city, that we need to make sure that the public knows that we are serious as the municipality of trying to solve some of the issues with our homelessness and the most vulnerable. We want to let the people know that we want to be part of the solution. We want a permanent location, whether it be for cooling or heat, in some location that's proper on a continuous basis. Give the lots of, as a city, we give a lot of money to a lot of event organizations in our community to do the best we can for our city, for all our communities and everybody that lives in it. But we still need to make sure that we look after some of the most vulnerable in our community. Now, granted, some of these may be coming in from out of town and staying here, but we have so many programs available in our community to feed the hungry, whether it be Salvation Army, Bridge Street, Not Alone Group, others, on and on and on. But we still cannot have our people staying outside and, at 30 below or 10 below or 5 below. We wouldn't want our children doing that. These people are vulnerable. We need to let the county know that we want to be part of the solution. And that may be putting more money in of our own money, along with the county money, to make sure that, we solve this problem on a permanent basis. We've gone on now for a couple of years. We added the police station, we added the library, we added the bus stop. Now it's at Bridge Street. We know that's a challenge because we've heard it. We were a day late getting open, no fault to everybody. But with the city the way it is, we need to, and the public want us. You talk to the number of merchants, public downtown, we want to be able to say we're providing a permanent location. We don't have to worry about them. Set a threshold of a temperature that we can live by, we can financially afford to live by and get these people someplace. And if we get a permanent location, we also may be able to get some of our agencies out there that's willing to help these people during the evenings when they're in when it's cold. Because right now, when we work it right now, we're not sure where they're going to be. Granted, it's a bridge, thank God they are. But if we have a permanent location, then we can work to saying, how can we help these homeless at night? How can we get them some advice so that we get them over? A lot of them have mental issues, but my thing is, we need to show to the public that as a city, we're serious about this. We want to be part of the solution, and whether it's extra money or not, but let's work towards it. And I ask for your support of this motion that's going to go to the committee, that a couple of three of our members, our committee members, our councillors are part of that committee, and forward it, come on back to us. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Before I open it up for discussion on this, I do have some things I want to say, not just about the motion, but also by the way that we're dealing with this business today. So, first of all, I shouldn't have to remind members of council that our council meetings are for the conducting of business of the corporation of the city. And as such, we have agreed to rules of procedure that we will use so that we follow them. The reason why these are important, and it's not just up to the chair to enforce them, it's up for all of us to enforce them. It's in order for councillors to be able to properly do their job. Members of Belleville City Council are expected to make a decision during these business meetings. They're expected to vote in favor or against resolutions. They're expected to come to meetings prepared, knowledgeable, being able to participate. And when we have a 144-word motion dropped on us under new business, as we did at the last meeting, with no pre-warning, and then to suggest that somehow it was unfair not to have that motion put before us, when, as I said at that meeting, I started writing what the motion was going to be, and after 10 or 15 words, I couldn't keep up, for good reason. There were 144 words in the resolution. How can any member of council properly consider and vote on something that we don't have in writing before us to that extent, where we haven't had the opportunity to prepare for that? So Councillor Thompson, you will be speaking last on this resolution, and I encourage you to apologize to your colleagues for the fact that you put them in the situation at the last meeting, requiring that the motion be ruled out of order and that a proper notice of motion be brought forward. We all know the rules, and we should be following them, and we should all be upholding those rules. Now, on the issue that's before us today, which is, it's a resolution. the good thing about this is that Hastings County has already started down this path of doing this. And Hastings County started on this path well before the last meeting when this issue was first introduced. We know that we are a caring community. Our partnership with the Health and Human Services and with 911 and with long-term care and with provincial offenses with Hastings County has been a very good one for the citizens. And we provide a variety of programs, including emergency services. We, in addition to the funds that we provide each and every year to Hastings County, our proportionate share of all the municipalities, above and beyond that, we also support a lot of these organizations that provide good support for our community. Since this term alone, we provided over $1 million to the vulnerable sector above and beyond our contributions to Hastings County. We've supplied almost $200,000 to Grace Inn Shelter above and beyond the funds that they receive from Hastings County as part of our proportion. And I say that because we are doing a lot of people don't believe that we are doing enough, and I think that's correct. I don't think we are doing enough as a society for helping people. That's why I'm so happy that our council has stepped forward and done this. I'm happy that we, as one of our first orders of business, increased the amount that was available to organizations through the Community Social Infrastructure Fund to double that amount. And those funds have been well served. One of the concerns that I do have, though, is that the solution is not more or permanent warming and cooling centers. Let me repeat that again. The solution for the issues of homelessness are not additional or more capacity in warming and cooling centers. The solution is to get people off the street, to get them into a shelter, to get them into transitional housing, to get them so they can become contributing members of society. This is what gets sometimes lost through the conversation of these programs. The Emergency Warming Center did not exist prior to this term of council. It never existed in Belleville. It happened in other communities, but not in Belleville. And we brought it because while we had emergency housing programs that we delivered through Hastings County, there were situations where people weren't accessing them. And we wanted to have a situation in extreme cold weather that we would have people come in from the cold and be involved. Point
of order, Your Worship, this has become a broader discussion other than Councillor Thompson's motion, with all due respect. Now we're discussing the entire merits of all of this, when all of Councillor Thompson's motion was to bring a report from County Council.
Thanks, Councillor Malette. This is debate on the discussion of that item that's before us. As I was saying, this is not simply an issue of adding more warming or cooling centers and it solves the problem. We need to deal with the bigger issue. And in my conversations with CEO Pine from Hastings County and Warden Phillips, and we have members who sit on that committee, and I think that it's good for us to give them some direction in terms of what we would like, including yourself, Councillor Malette, who sit on that committee. We need more shelter spaces in our community. Grace Inn has been at capacity almost since it first opened, and adding more warming and cooling centers isn't going to deal with that issue. And my advice to Warden Phillips and CEO Pine was that we need additional beds, we need additional spaces, and they should be in the region. So Belleville has a shelter, and I would like to see other members of Hastings County also have these facilities. So as they consider in their report, which will be coming, I understand, to the committee in February, and then coming forward to the municipal councils in March and in April, I would like to see us have additional shelter space, and I'd ask that our members bring that point forward. The last thing I want to say on this is that in addition to talking about expansion of services and more spaces, I do encourage members of council who serve on the Hastings Health and Human Services Committee to ask for a real evaluation of the effectiveness of our current housing support programs and our emergency housing support programs. We get a lot of feedback from people saying that it doesn't work, that they are simply one-way tickets out of town. And we spend a lot of money. Our portion, I believe, is 7.4 million a year that we contribute to that. We spend a lot of money, and we deserve to get good service and good results. And I'd like to see that question asked and that information also brought back with this information when it comes back to council. I certainly will support this, and I will vote in favor of it. Again, I think it was unfortunate that council may have been put in a position at that last meeting, had this motion gone ahead, where we all would have been trying to vote on something that we would not have seen, we would not have understood, we wouldn't have been prepared about. And I think today will be a better conversation for that. And I thank everyone for listening to my comments. Further discussion on this, Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I sit on that committee, and certainly I can assure everybody on council and everybody who's watching at home and Councillor Thompson that those discussions are ongoing. Certainly they are planning on bringing a report for us at the February meeting, detailing their renewed strategy around helping the homeless population and housing more generally. And I can assure you that on the previous call that we had, I believe it was last Wednesday morning, I brought up the issue with Hastings County about the need for more beds, both shelter beds and transitional beds, and brought forward the idea of incorporating warming centers into the additional transitional housing and emergency shelters that would be built. That way we might have some overflow of staff usages, a little bit more efficiencies, and it would help promote the opening on a consistent basis. So those questions are being asked, they are being worked on. My question as it relates to the motion, hopefully procedurally I can get some clarification on this, is that in the motion it says that the property is to be established in a centrally located facility. Is the intent of that to be centrally located within Belleville or centrally located within the Hastings County catchment area? Because centrally located within Hastings County would have that somewhere in Madoff. So I just want to make sure that we are refining terms there.
Yeah. So Councillor Alsop, everyone's going to have a chance to make their comments, and Councillor Thompson will be able to speak to the issue at the end, and he can provide the information that he will, and then you can determine if that's sufficient for how you will vote on the issue. But I would put out your points, put out your questions, and then Councillor Thompson can choose to answer those if he wishes at the end.
Great, thank you, Worship. So that effectively summarizes my comments on the issue, that this is something that obviously all members that are on that committee are certainly focused on. It is a major problem that we do have in the city. We are exploring different options and different funding methods for that. We expect to have more back in February, and certainly some clarification at the end on what centrally located means would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, next I think I saw Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. First of all, I'll start my comments on the motion. I didn't find it a bit disrespectful. I appreciate Councillor Thompson for raising this issue. He's been passionate about it in my 3+ years on council. So, Mayor, I did not find it disrespectful with the way we're talking about the motion tonight. So you don't speak for me. Right off the top, I mean, I've been involved with this on council now for the last 3 years, and as Councillor Thompson mentioned, the warming center has been in numerous locations, and this is the 4th year for us on council. 35,000 Canadians are experiencing homelessness on any given night in this country. 35,000 people. It's in crisis mode, coast to coast to coast. And we see it here locally. The numbers close to 200. Some of the issues, affordable housing, unstable work, jobs, mental illness, substance abuse, and they're broken. This is tough. And I did some calls here in Ontario just to see what other communities are doing with their warming center, and had some really good conversations. Brockville to the east, 7 nights per week. Right now, 18 are coming to stay. It can hold up to 50 to 75. Their warming center with no temperature attached to opening the doors. Aurelia has a community center open from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. No temperature attached to opening the doors. In Guelph, for the last couple of years, 8 o'clock at night till 8 in the morning with a nice breakfast and coffee as they take on the day with no temperature. Coburg, 30 minutes to the west, St. Peter's Anglican Church, 7 days a week, 8 p.m. till 8 a.m., starts in December and goes to the end of March, washrooms, food, and no temperature set to open the doors. So here in Belleville, for us, the temperature target is -10. I haven't liked that number. It should be no temperature assessed. You know, I spoke to some that work with our most vulnerable, and some of the challenges that those experiencing homelessness face on a daily basis. Identification problems. They need health. They have health issues and they need to see a doctor or a dentist. And it's not easy for them to access those services. We all got to work together. I heard a story recently about a gentleman with a major mouth issue. Dentist, and he had an infection. So he goes to the hospital and then finally he gets some medication, a prescription for it. They get that. And then that goes missing in a couple of days. And then we're back to square one with this individual. But thankfully we have those that want to help and are there to help to get those services of public health to those experiencing homelessness. You know, I had a great conversation with somebody that's been doing it for the past 7 years up in North Bay. And he's a gentleman that runs the Gathering Center. And at this Gathering Center, it's open all day, no concern about temperature. They offer similar programs to Bridge Street United Church with food and whatnot. But one of the things that this gentleman was telling me about, the executive director, the key for municipalities or cities is to start with the plan to get a warming center in place where there's cots. And I looked on the internet, you can get an army type cot for $90. And there might be some saying, oh, now we're expanding it, but it's just improving their quality of life and making sure that they have the necessities to live that just make sense. This doesn't seem to, it shouldn't be complicated. What's our long-term plan? When we have these conversations with Hastings County, are we going to invite those who have experienced homelessness, lived experience, and be a voice and being part of the planning process? When we talk about seniors or building something for the seniors or getting a program for them, we accept and appreciate input from seniors. So now I think it's these conversations that are coming up in the next few months, it's imperative that we get every player at the table. So I just wanted to say that it's time for us to really have a plan in place by latest would be the end of July or August. And we can do better. I appreciate everything at the Grace Inn, Bridge Street United Church, all the volunteers, anybody that supports families that are having a few challenges right now. And I'll leave it with this. There's a book by Ian De Jong. Ian's from Sault Ste. Marie. He's one of the most knowledgeable individuals on those experiencing homelessness and what communities go through and what are ways that we can make our community more supportive and helpful. I really suggest that you read his book. And the book came out in 2019 and talks about ending homelessness in Canada. And he's a revered speaker. He's all over North America. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Sandison.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to respond to some of what I've heard, and then I'll share my thoughts. So in December.
So can I just interrupt for just one moment, please? You know,
sure.
I'm trying to be careful about this to everybody. You know, I have found that our best discussions are when we speak about what we believe not in response to what other people have said. And the reason why I just point that out is because then that other person wants to have a reply and somebody else. And, you know, I think everybody can speak to the issue, and I appreciate you giving me this leeway to say this, Councillor Sandison, and I'm not trying to, you know, pick on you. I am anticipating that there'll be a number of other people who also will start talking about what other people said rather than what they think. And so if I can just caution everybody to keep their conversation on what they believe rather than in response to what others have said, please.
So I didn't think I was about to do that, but here goes anyway. So in December, I reported to this council that the Community and Human Services Committee were looking at homelessness. I shared with council that I had suggested to them a homelessness roundtable to bring everybody together, and that Director Susan Ritchie was formulating a plan that would come forward to this council in February and take into consideration many of the things that are contained in Councillor Thompson's motion. So I was having done that, I was surprised when Councillor Thompson tried to introduce this motion under new business at our last council meeting. He already had a seconder lined up, and he was looking for a recorded vote. So the motion, of course, was ruled out of order. And I think I speak for all the members on the committee, but certainly I strongly would suggest that, you know, Councillors Alsop, Malette, McCaw, and myself sit on the Committee of Human Resources with Hastings County. And if any member of council would like us to raise a concern or have a request for that committee, all you have to do is ask any one of us or send us an email, and we would be happy to bring it forward. You do not need to bring a motion to council. So council, as an example, Councillor Thompson chairs the Transportation Committee, and I've brought concerns directly to him on speeding and traffic calming. And is it any less serious that I don't bring a motion to council? Well, of course not. So as I already mentioned that the report was coming forward, I believe this motion is redundant. The work is underway, and as one of the members of the Community and Human Services Committee, I do take umbrage to the fact that this motion is before us. And I will, along with Councillors Alsop, McCaw, and Malette, provide council with an update at that time. In closing, Mayor Panciuk, you raised the comment about effectiveness of the emergency hotline. Councillor Alsop has mentioned that he raised at last week's call the need for additional beds and the need for increased housing. I also asked that a report come back to us on the effectiveness and usage of that emergency hotline. How many people are using it, and how effective are we at placing them? So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Who else would like to speak on this? Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. So a couple things. You know, certainly council has rules on meetings, and they need to be interpreted and applied with fairness and respect. And I'm just going to speak for myself. You know, Councillor Thompson was ruled out of order on the last meeting, brought in a notice of motion, which he's done. So he's complied with that direction. So I think that's done. And so through you, Mayor, to Councillor Thompson, for myself, I do not require an apology. That has been dealt with. With respect to the motion on the floor, I wonder sometimes if offense gets in the way of what the work we're trying to do here. And this doesn't take away from the work of committees. And at the end of the day, committees are accountable back to their respective councils. And so this doesn't take away the work that's done on a monthly basis, the issues that are brought forward, debated, and given direction to those committee staff to proceed. I think what this really comes down to was the fact that we have talked about this issue from time to time, but it culminated in the fact that in early January, when it was cold out, and a few of us on social media were tagged to find out that the warming center wasn't operational. And that took me by surprise. Now I monitor just, to see what committees do from time to time, but I don't follow them all vigorously, because we have members that report to those committees and do that work. And so I guess myself went with the assumption that it would be operational come wintertime. So I was quite surprised, and with that sent out some emails and started looking at some solutions, and the fact that the grant committee has money in the new year, what could we do to make the situation resolved? And it was great to see that city staff and county staff got together and dealt with it. But I think it raised the level of the crisis that we face. And really, we need solution programs when it comes right down to it. Warming centers and shelters are Band-Aid solutions. And it was kind of touched upon this tonight. At the end of the day, without stable housing and a continuum of care, and I've said this before, with mental health and substance abuse disorders, there's always going to be people that are in a state of flux, and they require that support. And I guess that's where we as a council and other councils in the region need to bang that drum loud, that the provincial and federal government need to step up with sustainable funding for solution-based programs. Now, we get funding all the time to assist with these, I think someone said Band-Aid solutions, and that's great because we do have people that require them. And even tonight, as it goes down cold and this week, that warming center is there as a Band-Aid solution. But the fact of the matter is those people are showing up with no stability in housing, with mental health issues and substance abuse disorders. And without those being addressed, we will continue to chase this issue. And I would say that the more we do at the municipal level, perhaps less will be done at the provincial and federal level. We'll fill that vacuum, if you will. And that's dangerous. And so I think first and foremost, the message has to be clear that in our municipality and neighboring municipalities, we have a significant housing crisis, as has been said. And despite our best solutions that we have created, it is nothing but a drop in the bucket to what is required. Couple that with the fact that mental health continuum of care is obsolete in the province of Ontario. You go to the hospital, you get put on a hold, and in 72 hours, if you're deemed to be outside that crisis, you're out. And you're not handed off to anybody that could provide that continual care. You're on the street, perhaps, if you don't have a place to stay, or you don't have a supportive group around you to deal with the issues that you may be facing. That's the reality in the province of Ontario. And I would say that's probably the reality in many provinces across Canada. That's the thing that we need to tackle at all three levels of government. So that needs to be first and foremost. But as far as the motion on the floor here today, I don't look at it as trying to undermine the work of the committee. And I do recall the information that was reported to council. I think what this does, it sends a signal that, number one, that we endorse as a city council the exploration of this feasibility and solutions. And while we have representatives of that on that committee, this sends a signal that this council is unified in that regard. Two, it requests a detailed report to council, just simply because we want to be sure that we're all informed as to what's going on this important file. Secondly, it explores the threshold on temperatures, which, and I don't know about my colleagues, but I would dare to say a lot of us get a lot of feedback from the community that we need to explore that further. So in that instance, all we're doing simply is requesting information based on the will of the people. And so I can certainly support that. And fourth, it provides details on some of that emergency housing. It's been referred to before. I did receive some information from CAO Pine that I requested simply because I wanted to see how effective it is. They have a contract, Hastings County does, with one motel in Quinte West. If they can get more contracts, then obviously that would mean that residents or people that are in Belleville wouldn't have to go to Quinte West to that motel. But at the very least, there is a solution available in addition to Grace Inn and in addition to a warming center to get out of the cold and have a warm place to stay. So I don't really look at this as problematic in the bigger picture. I think it perhaps maybe is some redundancy in terms of some of the things that are being done, but I want to be able to provide perhaps maybe to the committee members that sit on Community and Human Services that you have the full backing of City Council. And with this resolution, continue with the work you're doing, but know that we're all engaged in this and that we support the work that you're doing and support the results that will come out of that work. And that's how I view it. So I don't think it's circumventing the work of the committee. I don't think it's trying to push any disrespect on any individual member or members. This is an urgent issue. And Councillor Thompson simply saying is if we don't have this conversation and continue to push, that we'll continue to have these issues time and time again. And so I think it's a good resolution that simply provides the committee with wind in their sail to continue to do the great work you're doing and continue to push hard. And if there's anything that we as a council can do to support you in your work and endorse and lobby provincial and federal governments, then we're willing to do that. And so that's how I'm going to view this motion. And certainly that's how I'm going to view it as I vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Malette.
Thank you, Your Worship. And some great and eloquent points have been made by my colleagues on this matter. I'm not going to be belabor it. As a member of the committee, as pointed out, I take neither umbrage with Councillor Thompson's motion, nor with the fact that we are being asked to do anything that some might consider to be perhaps redundant. I don't see the redundancy in it whatsoever. I see, in fact, this is simply underscoring the importance of this issue. This is not a matter of a stoplight that's wonky. This is a matter of something that needs to be looked at in depth. And yes, we've had discussions offline from myself, others, not members of the committee, with senior staff from Hastings County. And an awful lot of these discussions have resulted in some of what we're seeing coming forward from County Council, as we saw the last time. We paid visits to Bridge Street. In our discussions, what we've come to discover is simply insisting that Bridge Street United remain open certain nights of the week or for longer may in fact be a breaking point for the service that's offered there. So what this does is underscore the fact that we do have to come up with a better solution. I'm going to support it. I in no way take umbrage with either the fact that Councillor Thompson's motion came to us in this form or in the former presentation 2 weeks ago. It's that important that it has to get done. And in the words of the late Councillor Alderman Wally Dever, let's get on with it.
Councillor McCaw.
Thank you, Hugh, and I'm going to turn my video off again.
Great, thank you.
So a couple things just based on comments I've heard that I just wanted to add to. I too would be interested in knowing the effectiveness of the emergency hotline. And I do believe, I don't know where the hotline is posted, but I think there are various areas that it should be posted because there is help for those even now who are homeless. And I think, as mentioned before, there's help 365 days of the year. So I think that perhaps that number could be posted in more places so that the vulnerable community know what's available. Second, we've talked about Grace Inn, and we all know that Grace Inn has an occupancy problem. But we also know based on a report from Grayson to Hastings County, that over 30% of the occupants have been from out of our Hastings County catchment area. And what that means is that's 30% of the people in our region that could have been housed, but yet there were others housed from other regions. That said, if this is going to continue, we can expect homeless individuals to be bussed into our communities, wherever we have shelters, whether that be Quinte West or Madoc or Bancroft. If it's available and we don't have a policy about that, it's going to continue like this. People will be bussed in from the GTA, Ottawa, Cobourg, and again, our local vulnerable population will be out in the cold. Hastings County and their research need to address that issue, or we're going to continue to see the same. I believe if Hastings County is going to research opportunities for other shelter beds, I do believe they should be in other Hastings County communities. We have one here. Many of the Hastings County people are bused to Grayson. If there are shelters and shelter beds in other communities of Hastings County, that would alleviate that concern in those communities. So that's another observation. And again, if a policy is put in place for these shelters and shelter beds, we're going to continue to see the same, and nothing's going to change. The problem with taking in vulnerable outside our community, it's all fine until we run out of money to do so. So, I mean, those are key points I think that we need to take back to Hastings County as we research this. As for the motion, I feel Councillor Thompson could have just picked up the phone and called me or emailed me. Might have saved a lot of time during this council meeting. I'd be happy to address any problem at Hastings County that he feels he's concerned with. He is also, I believe, the alternate on that committee. So, he may have been able to bring it forward himself at that level. So those are my thoughts on it. I'm going to support it, even though I think it's redundant and it doesn't need to be at all. But that said, I will support it because I think we need to move forward and come to a more positive and permanent solution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Feeney, do you have anything you want to say on this? I know you've got your screen off because of internet, so I just would ask you.
You know what? Yes, I have been going back and forth from my computer to my phone and trying to participate in this meeting. All great discussions. I think we are all around the table. We recognize that there's a need for moving forward. Again, affordable housing and helping with homeless and everything else. So that is the positive part about this. I will support us all work to help and work with different levels of government and Hastings and Prince Edward County and our committee people on council who have been doing a great job over the last few years and continue to do so. That's all I can say because I've only got little bits of the conversation, but there you are.
Okay, thank you. And I know that you had sent me a message regarding your power being off and that you wanted a comment to be made about the fact that, certainly we're as a council, we are also willing to support Hastings County and any other level of government to address affordable housing and deal with the issues that are facing us to deal with homeless issues and other social issues. So I'll pass it along, and certainly, like, we all are in this business because we care, and we're working hard to do that. So everyone's had a chance to. You're welcome. Everyone's had a chance to speak. Councillor Thompson, I'll give you the opportunity to wrap up, answer any questions that you feel you wish to, and then we'll take the vote.
Okay, thank you very much. And first of all, at the end, I'd like a recorded vote, but to answer a couple of questions here, one was from Councillor Tyler Alsop about centrally located. That would be in each municipality, a central location that's that the city would be happy with, plus the county would be happy with, because right now we have a warming room in Quinte West, ourselves, and Bancroft. So it would be a centrally located that's agreeable to everybody on those municipalities. So it wouldn't be one, say, in Tweed for everybody's municipality to go to. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. And yes, okay. And the other, your worship, you brought up about having a report on emergency housing, including usage and results. That's part of the motion. So I'm hoping that through this motion going to the county council, that some of that information would be brought for us. And I've had extensive conversation with Mr. Pines and the warden, Mr. Phillips, on this situation of getting it to them. They're both quite supportive of the bringing it to council and council getting it to the committee and the committee forwarding it through to county council. They know that this is a serious situation and it needs to be resolved on a permanent basis. And this is just showing that Belleville is behind this and wanting to make sure that it gets moved now to the point where we can get this resolved on a permanent basis. And so I'm going to ask for a recorded vote in this motion and ask that and tell you that some of those have been and you've heard from them all here today. We all know how serious this is. Yeah, and there's comments that I could have made phone calls and so on and so forth, but this I felt was the best avenue to go to for everybody to hear it at the same time. And then it gets on. The councillors all know it isn't just sort of one-on-one and one to the other. It comes in front of us. Everybody knows that it's a serious matter. We've trying to deal with this over the years. So I'm going to ask now for a recorded vote.
All right, thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, do you want to call the vote, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will start the recorded vote with Councillor Alsop.
Yes.
Councillor Carr.
Yes.
Councillor Feeney.
Yes.
Councillor Kelly.
Yes.
Councillor Malette.
Yes.
Councillor McCaw.
Yes.
Councillor Sandison.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
And Mayor Panciuk.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Always
Sorry. The motion has carried, Your Worship.
carried. Okay, good. Thank you. We'll move on to notice of motions. Anyone have any notice of motions they wish to make tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. Anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, with the Belleville Public Library operating separate from city proper, that continues to operate at 50% capacity. The gallery will reopen on Tuesday, February 1st, as per the recent provincial government reopening announcement, but will be subject to capacity limits as well. Thank you.
Good. And I understand the library closed early tonight because of the power fluctuations. The latest that we have received from Lexicon Energy, for anybody that's watching, is that they expect to be fully restored in the Belleville area by 7 p.m. Tonight. So announcements, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, just want to remind everybody, Wednesday, it is Bell Let's Talk Day. 5 cents from each text, call, tweet, TikTok videos, postings on Facebook to support mental health initiatives. So that's on Wednesday, Bell Let's Talk Day. Thank you.
Great. I think I saw Councillor Sandison. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Last Thursday, I was pleased to represent Mayor Panciuk and Council at the Belleville Fire and Emergency Services presentation under Project Zero to representatives of the Quinte and Belleville Provost Clubs, a program that's been in place for a number of years and sponsored by Enbridge. So Belleville Fire and Emergency Services received 210 combination smoke and carbon monoxide alarms through that Safe Community Project Zero. And they were distributed on Thursday to both the Quinte and Belleville representatives of the Provost Clubs. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else for new business, or sorry, announcements? Okay, I have a couple announcements. So I'll start off with some proclamations. It's my pleasure to announce that January is Alzheimer's Awareness Month in the city of Belleville, Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And I ask that everybody's helped me and join me in spreading the word to encourage awareness of this very important cause. Excuse me, as Councillor Kelly mentioned, January 26th, later this week, is Bell Let's Talk Day in the city of Belleville. This day is very important for our city and across the country. I ask that all residents of Belleville take the time to recognize this day and to take the time to help raise awareness as we try to remove the stigma that is attached to mental health. The Bell Let's Talk flag will be flown at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, and we encourage everybody to share those texts and those hashtags to try to get the funding from Bell Canada up. The city of Belleville recognizes February the 11th as 211 Day, and 211 is a service for residents who are looking to access or navigate government, health, and social or community services in their region. This free service operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year, and is available by phone, by web, by chat, text, email, and can assist in over 150 different languages. Throughout the pandemic, 211 has played a vital role in getting support and services to residents across the region. I am pleased to announce, as I mentioned earlier, that the Victoria Harbour ice is now thick enough to be open for skating. City staff have tested the ice and have started to clear safe sections. Please only use the areas where it is cleared and has been checked. And in addition to Victoria Harbour, a little farther to the west on the west side of Zwick's Island, we also have public skating. I had the pleasure of meeting with our MPP for the Bay of Quinte riding, Todd Smith, on January the 13th to further discuss the potential development plans for Black Bear Ridge, which more information will be released in the near future. This will be a tremendously exciting new project for our community. On January the 20th, I was unable to attend that great community event at Fire Station number 1 in Belleville. Councillor Sandison has mentioned that, but I want to thank him for attending as the acting mayor of the month for me. And I want to thank everybody involved, Fire Chief Belair and her team, the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council, as well as the Quinte and Belleville Provost Clubs for distributing and coordinating this information. If you will permit me a moment to reminisce, it was 2 years ago today, on January 24th, 2020, where two very impactful events in our city occurred. First, that day, I had to return suddenly to Belleville from an Alexicon Corporation board meeting in order to announce a shutdown of all electrical services for an emergency repair the following morning. And while we've had flickering all through today of power, that was a much more severe situation. We instituted our emergency management system. We put it into effect as we scrambled to prepare our community for a 3 to 5 hour total power shutdown. And little did we know 2 years ago today that this effort would serve as a warm-up to full implementation of the emergency control group operations less than 2 months later. In fact, today is also the 2-year anniversary of the first case of COVID-19 presenting in Ontario. Since then, we have all been through a lot. We have been tested in ways we never dreamt possible, and we've endured this for longer than we ever imagined we could. But we have risen to the occasion as a community, and we are winning this war against this virus. As we continue to care for each other with patience and love, moving forward, we will get through this together. And I thank every single resident for their cooperation, for their encouragement, and for their support. And with that, I will ask for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2022-09, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on January 24th, 2022 be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 24th day of January 2022, moved by Councillor Alsop, and I'm just looking at my screen, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor, it's carried. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Malette, all in favor, it's carried. We will see everybody, if not